The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix is a book that I wanted to read simply based off the title. It is a horror thriller book about slasher movies. And I didn't know much about this author, but this is his 6th book. He's written a couple nonfiction and a couple fiction. So the concept of this book is pretty great, but the execution isn't 100% there. We're focusing on Lynette Tarkington. She is a woman in her, I want to say early 30s, who had a slasher movie style attack when she was a teenager and became a final girl. And it happened again because horror movies have sequels. So she's been attacked twice. So she's sort of a basket case. She lives alone. She's turned her shitty apartment into a semi-fortress. She has multiple guns. She has all these escape routes. She doesn't have much of a life. She goes out for groceries every 2 weeks, and the only sort of social contact that she has with anyone is the Final Girl Support Group. She has a sympathetic doctor named Carol Elliott, and there's 4 other final girls who have all suffered from traumas in their past from slasher movie-like incidents. The reason why this can exist is because the author, Grady Hendrix, has decided to make this a more sort of super hyper violent world. So there's a lot of world building. It's very dense to start with, and not very believable either. I mean, one of the girls is based off of the young girl from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So they decided to write in that she's been attacked by the same cannibalistic family 4 times. Why 4 times? Because there was 4 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies originally. So, but you know, it just doesn't feel true to life. It feels kind of over the top. So in order to buy that, you'd have to change the world to make it more violent, but the author doesn't really do that. There's a lot of dense world building, but it just touches upon the society that's trying to make it all happen. Like in between chapters, there's like these news articles or movie reviews for these fictional movies. In this world, slasher movies don't exist like the ones we know, but instead they are slasher movies based off real life incidents that happen. So for example, let's say a killer shows up at a camp, Friday the 13th style, kills everyone. That final girl would become a celebrity. So she'd become like, if Laurie Strode, survived something in the real world, she would become like this super celebrity with book deals, movie deals. They would make a movie based off her life, and she would basically, become a sort of macabre sort of centerpiece for this, and it happens all the time. It's so commonplace that these 5 happened around the same time because America's just so violent, right? And there's new ones being created and new killers. It just doesn't feel realistic because, I mean, in real life, there are fans of true crime people. There's fans of serial killers, but it's never to the extent where, everyone gets a single book deal, and final girls aren't really a thing in the real world. I mean, there was a news story I read recently about a young sex worker who invited a man over, and he tried to kill her, but she killed him, and he was a serial killer apparently. And she doesn't really get much notoriety or anything. It's not like she's going to go... She could write a book, I guess, but it's not instant fame. So the book tries to make it happen in the same way that if you're watching the movie Jason X, that movie has Jason Voorhees in space. So in order to make that happen and plausible, you have to go backwards and write all this stuff around that concept. So in the future, Jason Voorhees is still valuable. He's frozen. He's on a ship, and someone's trying to smuggle him or something, and then he gets resurrected. So I mean, you have to throw all those elements together to make something happen. So in order to make a final girl support group happen, you have to have this super hyper violent world where people go crazy and try to kill people, groups of people, and if one of them happens to fight back and kill the killer, they become famous. And it just becomes a bit of a stretch because every single of the final girls has this intricate backstory. There's just so much dense storyline, including the main character. I like the main character's story the best because she's different, but I don't like the whole sequel bait thing where each of these girls have been attacked multiple times and their sort of life is just drowned in multiple incidents. It doesn't feel true to life, and the book doesn't feel like a slasher either. That's what I didn't like. It's more of a thriller. Our antagonist uses guns to try to kill them, so it's not particularly the most entertaining read because it feels like it has a lot of set dressing about slasher movies. Like all the chapter titles have like different titles relating to real life movies. So like, you know, the Final Girl Support Group 2, The Final Nightmare, you know, the Resurrection, you know, 25 years later, you know, like the final chapter, things like that. So there's a lot of set dressing. There's a lot of homages to actual slasher people. Like, for example, there's 5 girls. The main one is based off of Silent Night, Deadly Night. There's one based off Texas Chainsaw, one off the Scream films, one off Freddy, one off Friday the 13th, and then there's one more, and I forgot her name. There's one more. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and they, yeah, they're all based off like our famous slasher movies. There's homages all over the place. Here we go. Yeah, so Marilyn is based off of Texas Chainsaw. She's been attacked 4 times. Adrienne Butler, she's attacked once in a Jason Voorhees-like attack. Danny Shipman, oh, I don't remember her. She's not explored very much. Lynette is based off of the Silent Night, Deadly Night. Heather DeLuca is Freddy, and then Julia Campbell is the Scream movies. So each of them have been attacked. Some of them have attacked multiple times, some of them not. And I just felt like some of them, there's just so much going on because you already have one main character. The book is done from first perspective, so you only get stuff from her perspective. So a lot of the kills and violence doesn't even happen when she's in the room. It happens off page, and the body count's rather low. So it doesn't feel like a slasher movie. It feels like it wants to just sort of be like, hey, if you like slasher movies, read this book, and it has slasher stuff in it, but it's not really a slasher movie. It's not, you know, inventive. Overall, though, I did enjoy reading it. It's very short. It's only like a little over 300 pages. But I did not like certain aspects of the book. I did like, there's certain parts of the book I enjoyed, and there's certain parts of the book I did not enjoy. Parts of the ending were okay, and I really like the plot twist because it keeps you guessing. But I like the main character and like her sort of, you know, was it basket case, like, you know, like have a cage on the front door and, you know, have like 4 guns. I like that aspect, but the other characters were just sort of set dressing. They're just sort of there, you know, they don't really do much. They don't really have much to do. And there's this whole like faux celebrity thing where like every final girl's worth so much money, you know, book-wise, movie-wise, murderabilia-wise. It just feels really over the top. And, you know, if you're going to, you know, create this whole new world in society, you have to really like do it well. You can't just be like, oh, this is just like an alternate world where everyone's violent, you know, or, you know, you could have just had one fan do it, but like, I don't know, it just, the execution wasn't there. You know, everything's fine, but it doesn't feel like a slasher. It feels like it's borrowing those elements to make a cool thriller, but it doesn't quite hit the landing. So the Final Girl Support Group is okay. If you're like a hardcore slasher movie fan, you might not enjoy it because some stuff's just completely unrealistic and it doesn't feel like a slasher movie at times. And they throw in some other stuff too. There's like a romance in there, and there's also, you know, like other stuff that just doesn't feel like it would fit in a slasher movie. So I give the Final Girl Support Group a 2.5 out of 5.